Great story in the New York Times today from Gretchen Morgenson about Bank of America executives and what they told their shareholders about the Merrill Lynch merger that they were going to do in December of 2008. Well, it turns out that they gave the shareholders some numbers, which turned out to be inaccurate. And before the shareholders were going to vote on it, they got a different set of numbers, which showed that Merrill Lynch was actually going to lose a lot more money. But Ken Lewis, the CEO at the time, wanted to plow ahead with the merger. He was very interested in playing with the big boys and becoming one of the biggest banks on Wall Street. And he had been on a mad spree to buy out others even before the 2008 crisis. And they suggested that they pay $50 billion to buy Merrill Lynch. The shareholders approved it. Now, here's the problem. March 27th of this year, 2012. Ken Lewis was being deposed in a shareholder lawsuit. By the way, why was there a lawsuit? Because apparently because of the wrong numbers that the shareholders were given, the bank, within a couple of weeks of finding out what Merrill Lynch's real numbers were, lost nearly half of its value, losing about $50 billion of shareholder value. Now, that's a disaster, and it cost the shareholders. Remember, the owners of Bank of America, a tremendous amount of money. Now, did Ken Lewis know or not? Well, that takes us to the March 27th deposition. Well, he was being deposed, and they said, did you know that those numbers that you were giving in to the shareholders were the wrong numbers? And he says, quote, "They were not those numbers, no," meaning they were not the real numbers. There he is in sworn testimony, admitting we gave the wrong numbers to the shareholders on purpose. Now, that is a significant criminal violation. That is fraud. Now, and he's not defrauding the taxpayers, even though, of course, eventually they did take $20 billion extra from the taxpayers because of the disaster situation that Merrill Lynch was in. So we all got screwed. But mainly, he's screwing over the owners of his own company because his interests are not aligned with their interests. He wants to grow bigger. He wants to do well in the short term. If the shareholders take a bath later, well, that's their problem, not necessarily Ken Lewis's problem. And so he deceived them. Now, how do I know that it's criminal? Well, don't take my word for it. Jeffrey J. Brown was the bank's former treasurer, and he told Joe Price, who was Bank of America's chief financial officer at the time, after hearing about the new numbers that were much worse for Merrill Lynch, he said, "The failure to disclose, quote, could be a criminal offense," stating that he did not want to be talking through a glass wall over a telephone if no disclosure was made. That is according to the filings in the legal case. In other words, here's the treasurer telling the CFO, this is possibly criminal. Let's not do this. You got to tell the shareholders what the real Merrill Lynch numbers are. He is, of course, totally ignored. They don't share the real numbers. This is right after a December 3rd meeting where all the executives, including Ken Lewis, also were told about the numbers and how they were starkly different than what the public was known and what the proxy statement told to the shareholders, okay? And then one final piece of the puzzle, Timothy Mayopoulos was Bank of America's general counsel, and he was on the board. When he saw this, give him a lot of credit, he expressed surprise at the amount of loss that Merrill Lynch was going to suffer. And he said he had not been told about it. And he tried to speak to the chief financial officer, that's again the same Joe Price, about the possibility of disclosing the losses. Here's what happened. They take their own general counsel that's on the board. They go, oh, you want to talk about those possible losses? You're fired. In fact, you don't even have an opportunity to clean out your desk. He was escorted from the building. Now, you tell me whether you think that is a cover-up or not. Look, on the surface, it seems obvious. They have the numbers. They wouldn't share it with their shareholders. That is fraud. Their own general counsel said don't do it. Their own treasurer said it's possibly criminal. They ignored them, and they fired the latter, or they fired the general counsel, I should say, and to get him out of the building as quickly as possible. Now, Obama administration always says, oh, well, you know, there were some actions that were taken, but they're not necessarily criminal. There's nothing we could do. We're not going to prosecute any of the bankers. But here's an action that appears to be clearly criminal. You even have the CEO admitting in a deposition, well, yeah, I knew the real numbers and I didn't tell the shareholders, okay? At the very least, civil fraud, very, very least. Will they actually go after Bank of America? Only time will tell, but if history is any guide at all, the answer is absolutely not. They'll go after, minor people like John Edwards on trumped up charges galore. They'll go after, anybody they think is easy political prey, including some other people on Wall Street that are not as politically connected, that don't make as many political contributions. When it comes to the big bankers who run Washington, as Dick Durbin once famously said, the senator from from Illinois, well, they're going to leave those guys alone. Here it is. You have a clear case. What are you going to do about it? My guess is not a damn thing. So when I ask, hey, how can anyone possibly think that Mitt Romney is on the side of the little guy and is not representing the billionaires? A lot of people say, well, you're right. Nobody can possibly think that. But they also can't possibly believe that Obama's on the side of the little guy. When it comes to protecting bankers, Obama's done a terrific job at it.